Again, we'd like to welcome everyone this morning at this time. We've got a few announcements. All-Star Sports Camp, July 18th through 21st at the Lift Baptist Church, 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., 3 years old to 6th grade. For more information, there's a number on here. I'm going to put it on the back. Remember to be back with us Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. And we haven't got any more announcements. Do we have any birthdays? Everybody's getting older. Fire? Y'all ready to sing?
we all need another portion. We're looking for what now?
Stood a man Little cloud right before daylight this morning. Good to have the rain, and it's good to be in God's house today. Today is celebrating Father's Day. I'm glad there's right to be many fathers here today. That is a good thing. I want to talk a little bad about y'all. Today's sermon is titled A Tale of Two Fathers. We talk about David and then the prodigal son's father. No name, just that he was his father. But in looking at these two men, you know, there's had to be times when fathers have just scratched their head and said, man, what happened? You know, what did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong? You know, how did this happen to me? Should have been different than this, you know. And as we look at these two men's lives, we can see where sin in one man's life, his sin affected his children's life. You know, as good a man as David was a man after God's own heart, it said. Jesus Christ was born out of the lineage of David, you know, and just a great man. He killed Goliath with one smooth stone. He had all the faith in the world of God, but his sin didn't. And in that one sin that he committed there, when he had Uriah killed on the battlefield so he could have Bathsheba as his wife, because of that sin, Nathan tells him, hey, the sword's never going to leave your house. So for the rest of David's life and his generation after generation, there was always pain, fighting, arguing, and death to that house because of one sin that David committed, you know, and it affected everyone there. But us being fathers, you know, we should look to God, the Father, the ultimate Father. He should be our pattern of how we should raise our children. We couldn't go wrong if we would follow in God's footsteps and do everything that He done and raise our children in that way. But is that possible? Because I am not perfect. Nobody's perfect. We all mess up. Sometimes us men have a hard time admitting when we mess up. You know, a lot of times we use that old saying, don't do as I do as I say, you know. And it teaches, I've taught Clayton bad habits out of things that I do. And how can I look at him and say, hey man, don't do that? You know, that's my fault. Shame on me. You know, and things that I've done can ultimately affect my family. You know, just because you're a good provider don't mean you're a good father. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because what good is all the money in the world and all the luxuries this life has to offer when you have no relationship with your children? You know, even though you provided so well for them, you don't even know your children. What good is that? You know, there's a happy medium there. And I hope that we'll see this today, us men. If you have your Bibles with you this morning, turn to Luke chapter 15. And I'm going to be reading there, and some out of the Old Testament, but I'll start reading in Luke chapter 15, verse 11. And you know, the prodigal son, there's 3 sermons in this one set of verses that I'll read today. There's 3 different ways you could go with the father and how he lived. You could go with the son and how he lived and what happened to him. Or you could go with the older brother and how his jealousy over his younger brother was there. There's 3 different sermons in this one group of texts. But today we're going to be looking at the father. A certain man had 2 sons, And the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. And he divided unto them his living. And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together and took his journey into a faraway country, and there wasted his substance with righteous living. Now, stop right there just a second. Now, a lot of people could say that he was a bad father because he turned his son out, if you will. He supplied the means for his son to go and sin and live this righteous living, didn't he? He could have said, no, you're too young, you don't deserve it, now's not the time. You know, he could have done anything, any sort of things there, instead of turning that young man loose with all that money that he weren't used to having. You know, I don't know, have you ever seen, just hypothetically, people would say, well, if you won the lottery, what would you do with it? Or if you won the lottery, what would you, how would you spend it? And every day, it's all kind of different scenarios you can put there, boy. I always said I'd buy my own personal hunting club, But most people, they thinking other things besides that, But giving this young man the means to sin, if you will, we could say that the father did. Was he bad for doing that? I mean, you can look at it one way and say, yeah, he shouldn't have allowed that young man to have that money, because he should have known he's going to go off and he's going to blow it on mess he ain't got no business doing. But then, I thought about it this way. He might have been wanting to teach that boy a lesson, hey? And there comes a time, fathers, when we have to let our children go. And as bad as this may sound, we have to let them sin. Because how do you learn from your mistakes if you don't ever make them?
That's right.
I can't make all of Clay's decisions for him. He's 23 in September. He's a grown man. Abby, 18. I can keep both of them out the house and they keep putting me in jail. So I'm good to go. Good to go. But, I think, maybe that's what the father of the prodigal son was doing there. He was going to say, he said, well, son, here it is. Make what you can make of it. And he squandered. Well, then I think of David and Absalom. David, at all of Absalom's life, he looked at a father that fought, that conquered, that everything that he took over land, he took over this, everything was take. Is how David, that's how he rolled. If you want to say it like that. He was the king. He got what he wanted because he was the king. And his son, Absalom, looked at that. Now there was more there, more children, but today we're going to look at Absalom and what David's sin done to this young man. Well, he had looked at that, and Amnon, he raped Tamar, his sister. And I'm sure Absalom looked at David like, man, are you going to do something about this? David wanted to sweep it under the rug. David didn't want it to be known. David didn't want to rock the boat. David was getting older and David was tired of fighting. So instead of handling the problem at hand, he chose not to. So his son, Absalom, decided, hey, I'm going to do what's right here. I'm going to do what I feel like is right. And he killed him on, didn't he? Then, he was on the run. And rightly so, because he had murdered a man. And now David, that's his son. David don't want no harm to come to his son, but his son, by today's standards, if you look at it, he had committed a crime. And it says, you know, even though we may be a child of God, if we commit a crime, we had to pay the price here on this earth and whatever punishment it may be. You know. So David sinned. Look what it happened years and years ago. But it said the sword would never leave your house, did it? Now ain't it something that his beloved son Absalom will get his hair hung in a low-hanging tree and be killed? All because of the sin and strife that he had seen in his daddy's life and how his daddy had lived his life, you know. But this is David, a man after God's own heart. But see what sin does to people? See what sin does to fathers that sin and how it affects our children? You see? It can be positive or negative, but in this case with David, it was negative. But as we read in Luke chapter 15, verse 14, and when he had spent all, there arose a mighty famine in the land, and he began to be in want. Talking about the prodigal son. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed swine. And he would have fain have filled his belly with the husk that the swine did eat, and no man gave unto him. And when he came to himself, he said, how many hired servants of my father's have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? Now, some people would feel sorry for him there. You think if his daddy could have been there, here's what was Shelton said to you if you were down there slopping with the hogs and you put yourself there. Would they be one tear roll down his cheek and say, I'm sorry? Or would he say, you got just what you deserve, got just what you asked for. You wanted it, now you got it. There it is. You know? And in some ways, we do deserve the things that happen to us that we bring upon ourselves, just like this young man there. He had a father that loved him, a father that probably didn't want him to go a step. He wanted him to stay right there at home where he was at, where he could take care of him. But he just had to go. And now he's wound up in this heap of a mess, you know, and he kind of deserves to be where he's at, don't he? And our Father in heaven, how many times have he looked at us men in our lives and how we sin? Because see, there's an order to things, and most of the time, us men are the ones making the calls, ain't we? We write the laws. We say this should be like this. You know, there's so many ways the man is supposed to be the leader. That's how God intends it to be. So anything that comes against us, most of the time we've caused it ourselves. You know? There's a whole generation of people that have went without fathers, and because of them going without fathers, they don't understand respect. They don't understand that there are days of reckoning and things to answer to, and that's just how life is. They don't understand that. They don't think that they should have to show anyone any respect. And because of that, because of the father being absent in this generation of people, that there is no respect. And because of that lack of respect, many, many bad things have happened. You know, my daddy, Lord knows, he taught me about respect. I'm supposed to respect my elders, and I'm supposed to show respect to people in higher places than me. Don't mean you don't have to like them, but you do owe respect to people in places. Because it's just, they're due that amount of respect just because of who they are and where they are. And because, y'all, it's become okay that the world has changed so much. And I hate to say it, man, it's because of fathers not being fathers and leading, starting in the home. How could you lead a community, a state, a nation, a world when you can't even lead your own house? Whenever you can't, whenever your children can't look at you and see that you love your wife and she's the most precious thing on earth to you, and they can't see that kind of love, how are we supposed to expect our children to love? You know? That's the way God intended us fathers to be. You know? And it really hurts my heart. But we can thank the men of this world for the shape that is in today. Really. For not trusting in God and being the fathers that they should be. In verse 18, this young man realized, you remember that old verse in Proverbs 22, 23, I believe? It said, train up a child in the way that he should go, so that he wouldn't turn from it, and if he did, he would return when he was old. So you know, with a clear conscience, I can lay down at night and know that those two back there, I taught them right. They know the way to go. Now here's a great big world. It's yours to conquer. But I've done my part. I've done it. Now was I perfect? No, there's plenty that I've done wrong. But there it is, in those thick heads of theirs, the memory that, hey, my daddy loved Jesus. He taught me to love Jesus, and that's what I need to do. And with a little bit of faith, I can watch them do things that ain't right. But one day, guess what? They're going to have to turn from it and do the right thing. And he arose and came to his father. But when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said to the father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. Now right there, that father had all right to say, yeah, you know what? I blowed a bunch of money on you. You know, right there, I've bought cars, I've done this, and I've done that. I made down payments on houses for you. I've done this and I've done that. And now you want to come back crying to me? Oh no. You can just take that mess and get on down the road with it. And he would feel justified doing that, wouldn't he? But a father that loves his child, a father that loves his child, is going to give that child every chance in the book. Because, guess what? Our Father in heaven, well, he invested a lot on us. He invested his life on Calvary. He spilled blood on Calvary's cross for me, for you, for each and every one of us here today. He invested a whole lot, didn't he? You know? And he loves us each and every one. And every time I had to crawl back to the cross and ask him for forgiveness, he'll forgive me. But are there some things I need to learn along the way? Oh yeah. There's a lot that we need to learn along life's narrow way that will keep us, it's not that old saying, you know, you learn from your mistakes. You know, and that old saying too, Einstein said, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome is the perfect example of insanity. So when we do these things and it never works, why don't we change? When boys run out to the world and they try these things and they try to be in the world and nothing ever seems to go right. Why don't they run to Jesus instead of their friends that's only going to see them get in trouble or drag them that much further down? Me and a hard-headed ain't. I just told Dad yesterday I was not hard-headed. And the son said to the father, but I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and no more worthy to be called thy son. But the father said to the servant, bring forth the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring hither the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to be married. You know. And that's us. It's about forgiveness. A father knows how to love. A father knows how to be tough. A father knows how to pick a child up and dust his knees off and say, hey, you're going to be all right. And then a father knows how to let that child fall and skin his knee and say, see there, told you that's what was going to happen. You know? I know a young man, I told him my name's Clay. He got a little electric scooter for Christmas one year. Why do young boys love mud so much? I don't know. But he ran the house for that thing. That little thing, it fly too. He kept going through the same mud hole, and I kept telling Clay, don't go through that mud hole. Clay, don't go through that mud hole. About the 15th time he went through that mud hole, he lost control. I reckon he done worked him a rut in there, and the steering wheel went sideways, and I guess while he was crashing, he was screaming because a limb on the Bradford Pier stabbed him in the gum, and it was pouring blood. And I said, huh, there you go. That's what you deserve. Then the man come out and say, oh my Lord. But he got what he deserved in my mind, you know. But what if, when he went through that mud the first time, I'd done like my daddy, stopped, time out, off the scooter, bailed out, bailed his tail. That would have been better. Then he would have never split his lip open, would he? Sometimes we had to love like that. Sometimes we had to let them learn, you know. There's no magic formulation to it all, except I'll say this. There's no greater pride than being a father. I'll tell you that today. I know I hear people make remarks like, I'll be glad when mine's grown. I'll be glad when I ain't got to worry about them no more. I don't think that day ever comes. It never comes. And I'd love to raise mine again. That may not be 23 instead of 46.
Just like
would.
Chris, you're going to have another chance. In
Well,
15 years, the place going to have you up. You already achieved, like Jason did us last week, rock climbing and mud slinging. And, you know, yeah. It was fun.
I love the youngins, and that was one of the greatest things in my life, to be a father and be called daddy. And, you know, I think men, though, we should be serious about it. We should care about our children. We should not want to see them make the mistakes that we've made. We would love to see them be set apart from a world that don't want to do nothing but tear them apart. Teach them respect. And hey, that goes on to our grandfathers and all. If you're in that role as someone's daddy, I promise you, the things you do determine a lot about how that child's life will turn out. I promise you that. And it's a sad state that the world's in today, but a lot of it is just from the fact of fathers not being fathers. I mean, I hate to be blunt, but that's the truth. That's the truth. You know, what does it say? It don't take much to father a child, but it takes a lot to be a daddy. It takes a lot to be a daddy. A lot of love. Tough love. Sometimes we need it. But just love in general is what we need. But we come with him an invitation today. You know, maybe you're here and you are a father and feel like you failed in many ways. I imagine most of us do. But can we have faith in that verse that I read? It's from Proverbs 22:6. Train up the child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Can we have faith, y'all, today, knowing that if we've raised our children and done the right thing, once it's out of our hands, it's not out of God's, and they couldn't run from it if they had a ticket to the other side of the world. God's going to hunt them down, they're going to do the right thing. I have faith in that today.
Church in. 373.
Before you do this, I need to say something. You talked about fathers, you know, and it is Father's Day, and we just want all of you that are fathers, and even the men that are not, you know, how much the church, we appreciate you, we love you, and we just pray that, you know, you'll all continue to grow in love and be together and love each other. And as you go out the front door, we've got you a treat for today. Make sure everybody gets one.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you for this day that you blessed us with, Lord. Lord, today we set aside, Lord, to just remember our fathers, Lord, and God, just pray that you just make them stronger, Lord, each and every day. Lord, just pray that this younger generation, God, that they would be, Lord, be fathers of like the old ones, Lord. Lord, that they would seek your face in how to raise their children, Lord. Lord, I just thank you for all that you do for us here at Longwood Baptist Church. In your holy name I pray. Amen.
Yeah, she's at home.
Nah.